2-2 conditional statements. So a conditional statement is an if-then statement. We can write it P then Q. That's our shorthand for it. In that statement, we have an hypothesis, and that is the part following the if. So we can write if P as our abbreviation. The conclusion is the part following the then Q. Or P implies Q. Sometimes you can see it as. Okay, so if an animal barks, then it is a dog. That is a type of an if and then statement. If an animal barks, then it is a dog. That, for most people, is true, but there are different type of animals that bark. Somebody mentioned a barking spider. We've had some other examples of things that bark. Wolf, coyotes. So it doesn't always have to be a dog. So if an animal is a dog, then it has 4 legs. Again, most of the time that's true. Sometimes it's false, but it still is an if-then statement. So we can negate that statement. A negation of a statement, P, is the opposite of the statement. So we go not P. So our little squiggly means not. So if a polygon is a square, then it has 4 right angles. So I just did the right angle symbol. And that is true. A square always has 4 right angles by definition. So if a polygon is not a square, then it does not have 4 right angles. We negated both sides. We use not and not in here. If a polygon is not a square, then it does not have 4 right angles. Well, that one actually is false, because we could be a rectangle. It's not a square, but it would still have 4 right angles. So when we negate both sides of the equation, it's called the inverse. And so again, abbreviated form, if not P, then not Q. Not P, then not Q. Another form of a conditional statement, if a polygon has 4 right angles, then it is a square. So they took the original and they flipped it, put the then first, the conclusion first, then the hypothesis second. If a polygon has 4 right angles, then it is a square, not always a rectangle. Is my example, that would make it false. When we do this type of equation, it is called the converse of the equation. So instead of if P then Q, it switches it. If Q then P. Again, it takes it and flips it. Q then P. Another example, if a polygon does not have 4 right angles, so now I'm negating this part, the if part, and the then it is not a square. When we have flipped it and negated, that's called the contrapositive. So a contrapositive, if not Q, then not P. Not Q, then not P. So you always start with your original statement, and then we can do our inverse, converse, contrapositive. So those are the 3 types. We can change them into, I guess my pen's drying out. And always the conditional and the contrapositive are equivalent statements. So when you see those, they will always be either both true or both false. So an example, we can take a sentence and write it as a conditional statement. A quarterback plays football. So a conditional statement would be if a person is a quarterback, you always want to tell what it is you're talking about. If it's a triangle, if it's a polygon. So if a person is a quarterback, then they play football. We can write the converse of that. Again, that just switches the P's and Q's. If a person plays football, then they are a quarterback. If we were to write the inverse of that, then we negate the P and Q. So we go back to the original. If a person is not a quarterback, then they do not play football. Contrapositive is negating the converse. If a person does not play football, then they are not a quarterback. And those are your notes for 2-2.